Lee said, "Do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one." Now, probably like most of y'all, I grew up with pretty strict Asian parents. You know the one that when you would go to them with a little kid and you're like, "Hey, can I go see a movie with my friends?" It's like, "No, you just went out recently." Or the ones that would always say, "Hey, go study. Hey, go do your homework." Or, "Why aren't you practicing piano?" You get the point though. They were strict. They were strict parents. But because they were strict, I was able to be successful in school. Because they pushed me, I was successful in school. I made straight A's. I even played varsity tennis. And all through that, I ended up being automatically admitted into college, A&M. And so even that, it took away the pressure of having to apply, having to wait and hear back. I already knew, like, okay, cool, this is taken care of. But now, imagine the scariest roller coaster that you've ever been on and slap it inside of a really pitch dark place, okay? That's what it was like for me going to college. You know, that first peak on the ascent going up. That was my first experience going to college. I didn't know what to expect. I couldn't see more than 6 inches in front of my face. I didn't know what was coming my way. And so I found the world's best distraction. I got a girlfriend my freshman year. I dated her, we broke up, and then I fell into what I felt was like hopeless depression. I started skipping almost every single one of my classes. I started just staying home, playing video games in a subconscious attempt for me to just sedate all of the feelings I felt. The feeling of failure, the feeling of letting my family down, the feeling of embarrassment, because I knew my family sent me off to college thinking, you know what, this kid is going to be the first person from our family, he's going to be the first person to graduate from college, and he's going to make us proud. You know, we're immigrants, and he's going to make us proud. But I wasn't that kid. I was not doing any of that. I was failing, and I was so afraid to even tell them. And so I did what all smart people do, and I shoved it all aside, swept it under the rug, and as all things that we sweep under the rug, it came back out, bit me, and bit me hard. Only 2 years into being at Texas A&M University, I received a letter saying, "Hey dude, you're about to get kicked out of this university." And I remember I was sitting in my backyard that day, in the middle of summer, building a porch. And I opened my phone, you know, just expecting bad grades already. But I opened my phone and I saw this letter, and it said, just that, "You're about to get kicked out of A&M." And I remember the hair on my neck just standing up as my heart sank. And with it, my body just crumpled over. And I didn't know what to do. Tears streaming down my face. All I could muster was to ask myself, angrily, what the fuck were you thinking, dude? Just wasting your time all the time. Just staying home, playing video games, not working on school. But not surprising, right? My GPA was below a 2.0. Trying to get into engineering with a 2.0, below a 2.0. And it doesn't work out that way, right? But luckily I was able to find a way to stay at A&M. I was able to stay at A&M, to redeem myself, and so right around time that semester was starting back up again, I remember something just clicked for me. I think it was a motivational speech or something, but something hit me, and I was like, that makes sense. And then I went from the kid with no work experience, the kid with a garbage GPA, into someone working at Toyota, working at Raytheon, graduating with a full-time offer to Lockheed Martin. And it blew my mind, because that was a dream for me, dream company for me. All throughout college, I couldn't get in. I applied over 100 times, never applied. But all of a sudden, work, and it happened. And so it was about taking responsibility over my actions, right? And I realized that for things to change, for me, I had to change first. I realized that I had to take total ownership of it all. I had to take total ownership of the good things and the bad things. And yeah, it's going to be hard because we all get victimized in one way or another. And that's why it's so hard for us to just look at ourselves dead in the eye and say, dude, you are exactly where you should be. You're exactly here because of all of the decisions you have made up until this point. It's so tempting to blame other people. And I love this example because, okay, you got mugged. Who's going to say, I chose to get mugged, right? But the question is, where were you when you got mugged? Who were you with? What mode of transportation were you in? Why couldn't you defend yourself? Crude example, but bear with me. The point is that you have told your mind that you are a helpless victim of circumstance. And whenever you're in that space, you become stagnant, you become stuck because you believe that you have no power over your own life. And the moment that we start to open ourselves up to taking total responsibility, we open ourselves up to the possibility, of understanding one important concept. It is that with different decisions, we can lead to different outcomes. So maybe you were out too late that night. Why didn't you learn martial arts earlier? You know, that's the point. But whenever you label yourself as simply the victim, you don't use that experience for anything positive. And that's the point. The point is not to say, oh, there's nothing that I can do. Because whenever you're in that space, that mind space, you start to look for solutions because you believe that you have the power to create change in your life. And that to me is so much more empowering than thinking, there's nothing that I can do. And just as your decisions and your outcomes can change, your mindset can also change. It is malleable. It's simply just a bunch of neurons connected, and you can always make new connections. And that's the beauty of it. And so think of it like this. So most of us here probably work or go to school, right? And so when was the last time you drove to work, got to work, and then realized, like, hey, I don't remember my drive at all? See, that's habit working. It's just natural because it's normal for us now. It's hardwired. But now all of a sudden there is construction on that road. You're forced to use a new road, right? You're forced to go out and, I need a turn here, right? The street name, that street name. So you're conscious now. You're conscious of creating new patterns. And every time you start to drive that path, you get better at it. And eventually, you can probably do it with your eyes closed. But y'all don't drive with your eyes closed. So for me, it was the concept of the brain being able to create new connections and then repeating those actions over and over again so that it hardwires, so that it creates a habit for us. And it's whenever we have habits that we can replace over time. And now that you understand that the mindset can change, that you can make new connections, that's where habit loop triggers come in. To me, habit loop triggers are like your mindset's GPS system. But to use a GPS system, what do you need? You have to know where you're trying to go and what you don't want to do, right? Oh, I don't want to take the tollway. So you input that direction to your GPS system. And basically it is saying, hey, I want to go there, but I can't do X, Y, and Z to get there. And every time you start to deviate, every time you start to kind of go off track, your habit loop trigger kicks in and says, hey, you said X, Y, and Z, you can't do that to get to your goal. But again, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. But the point is, you intentionally tell your mind that you want to go somewhere. You tell it that I'm not going to do this. And that's the point. Is so that you are intentional about making that shift, making that change. And so for me back then, going to a career fair, being terrified of talking to recruiters, it was just plain old fear. Plain old fear. Until the day that I started to look at it as a little game, right? Every time I go and talk to a recruiter, it's like, okay, that one didn't work out, but why didn't it work out? Reflect on that, and go to the next person, talk to that recruiter. Hey, hell, go back to the same person, they probably might not remember you. You can try that, but it's all a game. That means you have as many tries as you want. You can keep at it. And that changed my fear into a trigger for excitement, and excitement triggering productiveness, triggering me to go talk to more people, right? And with that being said, you have to believe that you can do anything that you set your mind to. Because whenever you believe that, you understand that, hey, there are things that I can't do yet. It's simply a three-letter word, yet. I can't get a job. I can't understand this concept for this class, for this exam. I don't feel confident yet. And that simply tells your mind that it is inevitable, that you will achieve that goal, that you will become that person, that you will get the job, that you will understand that concept. And so it no longer just becomes, hey, I can't do that. It is, I can't do that right now. But on a long enough timeline, I can. And with enough effort in that timeline, I can. Right? And all of that leads right up to the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves. You know, there's two questions, just for example based. Are you sitting at home whenever something goes wrong, complaining about life, complaining about blaming other people about certain things? When, again, right, we're supposed to take total ownership of our life. We're supposed to own it. We're supposed to take inventory of the things that we've done that got us to that situation in the first place. Are you giving up after trying things 1 time, 2 times, 1 week, 2 weeks? There's a famous quote by Henry David Thoreau. As a single footprint will not make a path on the earth, a single thought will not make a path to the mind. To make a deep physical path, we must walk again and again. And to make a deep mental path, we must think over and over again the kinds of thoughts that we wish to dominate our lives. So that simply means you have to repeat over and over again. You cannot give up after 1 or 2 times because, again, you have old habits that we are trying to replace. And those 2 answers and a whole lot more make up the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves. And had I just accepted the fact that I was screwing up big time in college and saw myself as, hey dude, you're at the bottom of the barrel now. You are the underdog. You have something you can prove. And to all those advisors that told me I would never get an engineering degree, that I will never graduate as an engineer, I would have been so much better off. Because I would have had a mission. I would have been on fire. I would have been going out there trying to prove them wrong. And then proving to myself that I was capable of learning, of getting that degree. But I didn't. And it cost me a lot of time. And if your stories do not fire you up, if they do not bring you joy, if they do not bring your energy, you yourself are hurting, you're just hurting yourself. And that's why our stories are so important. And that's why I've become such a huge proponent of this creed. Mindset is everything. That's why we must master our mindset, because whether it's the outcome of a 2-hour-long tennis match, or where you end up in 5 years, who you're dating in 10 years, where you're working in 15 years, all of that comes right back down to your mindset, because your mindset is made up of your beliefs accumulated over years. And those beliefs lead to action, decisions. Decisions and actions then lead to outcomes. And those outcomes, again, you must own. And if you don't like it, you gotta start shifting your mindset, because again, mindset is at the beginning of it all. So with that, I leave you all with one final note, that it all comes down to our decisions to change. Thank you.